Once again, welcome to today's lecture. Today's topic is animal byproducts utilization. This is coming under Unit 3 for the undergraduate veterinary students, that is Abattoir practices and animal byproducts utilization in Unit 3. This will be also useful for the postgraduate students. In this today's lecture, I am going to discuss the general aspect as an introduction to byproducts utilization. So briefly, I will be talking about what is byproducts, the scope of byproducts utilization, different byproducts like edible and inedible byproducts available from both ruminants and also from pig and poultry slaughter. And briefly I will discuss about the use of different byproducts like blood, intestine, hide and skin, bones, etc. But each of them will be discussed separately in specific lectures. Now about value of byproducts. As you have already learnt, the dressing percentage in case of large animal or small ruminants, the dressing percentage is around 50 to 52%. That means the remaining 48% is the byproduct. Of course, it does not mean everything is waste. There is both edible and inedible byproducts, which I will come next. So here the byproducts, if we properly process, then we can have better economic return. So as such, if we just sell them, it may get around 10 to 20% value. But if we process every byproduct properly, then it can give us almost equal economic return as meat. So this is very important to understand the importance of byproducts utilization. Here briefly we will understand the present scenario or the problems related to byproducts utilization. Firstly, there is lack of awareness. So many times people are not much aware that much of these byproducts can be processed into very valuable products which can give better economic return and the animal farming becomes more profitable. Sometimes though there is awareness, there is lack of infrastructure, or sometimes the poor hygiene. The slaughterhouse itself is not in good hygienic condition, so byproducts are not collected properly or processed properly, or sometimes lack of collection facilities, sometimes problem in transportation and storage, or the slaughterhouse itself is in very small scale, so there is not much effort, or sometimes not much proper know-how is available. So these are some of the reasons why the byproducts are not used properly. So here once again we will try to understand the reason for underutilization of byproducts in Indian slaughterhouses. Firstly, lack of modern abattoir facilities. I have mentioned previously. So abattoir must be modern, the facilities should be good, the collection facilities and storage facilities should be proper. Then only the byproducts can be, all of them can be properly collected, stored or processed. Secondly, lack of proper scientific and technical competency. So since there is not much awareness or not much importance given or not much facilities are there, so proper scientific awareness or proper training is not available for their hygienic and scientific handling, processing and utilization. And thirdly, lack of transfer of technology from laboratory to industry. So sometimes there is some techniques available, technologies are available with the research scientists, but it is not properly transferred to the industry. So these are some of the reasons for underutilization of byproducts. Here we will see the potential and scope of animal byproducts utilization. As you can understand, there is a large quantity of byproducts which can be collected from the slaughterhouses, and that can help in development of the economy. If all of them are properly collected and processed and marketed, side by side it can help in the industrial development, and it can have a huge impact on employment generation Also, it can play important role in the environmental safety. As you can understand, if they are not properly collected, they will be disposed of, sometime even without proper care. So all the organic materials will undergo decomposition, which lead to the environmental pollution, and even it can cause human health hazard. And if they are properly utilized, then it can give very high economic return, so the animal farming becomes more economic. Now, feasibility of processing. What is the practical feasibility and potential? So briefly I will talk here because it is mostly for the undergraduate students, but all these things we will talk in more details for postgraduate lectures separately. So here, availability of raw materials. This is not at all a problem because India has got large livestock and large number of different animals are slaughtered regularly. So there is a huge availability of raw materials. Secondly, demand and cost. Definitely there is demand. Many of the byproducts can be processed and even used for edible purpose after processing, or other things can be processed and made into very valuable use, which can give very good economic return. Of course, there is investment required. So firstly, there has to be proper facilities or modernization of the existing abattoir, for which we need investment. And secondly, some better technical facilities are required for the processing of the different byproducts. So these two aspects, these facilities for the abattoir and facilities for the byproduct processing, has to be upgraded. That needs investment. Labor cost in India being the very high labor availability, so it may not be a major cost. We need to train the people for small utilization of different kind of byproducts. So labor is not a big cost. And then marketability. Once we develop the proper technical facilities, trained manpower, all these byproducts can be processed into different useful value added products, which can be even marketed externally or in the domestic market. Here we will see the benefits of byproducts utilization. As I have already mentioned, by proper utilization of the byproducts, there can be huge employment generation, even for the collection, cleaning and transporting, and it can generate a lot of revenue, so it can boost the economy of the country. Or we can produce many value added products, either edible or non-edible, that can give an economic return. And by proper collection and utilization, we can prevent the environmental pollution. So normally many byproducts are not properly used, they are dumped, that cause decomposition, pollution and health hazards, so that can be avoided. And finally, it can have a better return for the farmers and also those who are in the meat industry. For them it can give better return, and ultimately it is an economic benefit for the country. So this is a highly beneficial scope for proper utilization of animal byproducts. Here we will get an idea about the quantum of meat and byproducts. As we have told you earlier, India is producing around 8.6 million metric ton of meat annually, of which there are large animal and major part is buffalo slaughter. Then there is sheep and goat and pigs. So large animal on an average annually it is around 20 to 22 million, sheep and goat about 70 million, and the pigs around 10 to 11 million slaughtered. From this, a large amount of byproducts is produced, and this only about 50 to 60% is underutilized. And if all these things are properly utilized, then it can give us a very huge economic return. And as I told earlier, the byproducts makes around 30 to 35% of the total weight of the all livestock on an average. So this shows an idea about the quantum and potential for utilizing different byproducts. Now we will discuss about the classification of byproducts. Generally they are classified as edible and non-edible byproducts. Of course, sometimes they are classified as primary and secondary byproducts also. and sometimes they are also classified as per their use, like pharmaceutical byproducts, agricultural byproducts, and industrial byproducts. So here we will focus more on the edible byproducts. These are the byproducts which are directly consumed as meat, and sometimes they are also called as variety meats. So here the edible byproducts, mostly they are the organs, so they will have a lot of enzymes and they are more perishable. That's why they have to be chilled quickly, even sometime at a lower temperature, like at around 3 degrees Celsius. So these edible byproducts coming from the organs or offal, sometimes also called as variety meats, either they can be sold directly or they can be partially processed, frozen, and can be sold. As I already mentioned, some of the edible byproducts which can be used as meat, here briefly we will talk about it. That is the brain, liver, heart, kidneys, spleen. They all are consumed as meat and considered as variety meat. Similarly, sweetbread, tongue, oxtail, cheek, and trimmings. When head is cut into and remove the muscles, we get a lot of trimmings. So these trimmings are used as an ingredient for sausage. Sometimes we can also use all these trimmings in making soups. So these are some of the edible byproducts obtained in case of, say, sheep and goat or large animal, or even in pig. So all these byproducts which are consumed directly as meat, they are considered as edible byproducts, or sometimes we can call variety meat. Now we will discuss on inedible byproducts. In fact, this lecture is more on the inedible byproducts, on introductory aspect of different byproducts. So some of the most common byproducts which we get in the process of slaughter, the first is the blood. So briefly we will talk about the use of blood, and later we will discuss in details in separate lecture. Similarly, there is hide or skin. We can get bones if we go for deboning, especially in case of large animals. Then we get GI tract. So GI tract is a major part from which many utilization can be done. Briefly we will talk here, and later we will discuss in details. Then glands. Many glands can be collected during the slaughter. Then hair and wool, which we can get from the sheep and goat, or hairs in case of pig slaughter, and we can get feathers in case of poultry slaughter. So these are most important inedible byproducts. There are a little bit more details I will discuss later. Here, just to get an idea about the quantum of byproducts in case of small ruminants, say about 50 sheep if we slaughter, we can get carcass about 4,800 kg weight, blood 400 kg, head 900 kg, legs 200 kg, skin 1000 kg, stomach and intestine after making the empty, it is 600 kg, fat 100 kg, lungs and trachea 100, and stomach and intestinal content 1000 kg. This is just to get an idea about the quantum of different byproducts available in case of small ruminants. Here we will see about the recovery and utilization of byproducts in case of small ruminants. In case of head, it is fully recovered, and sometimes it is sold along with forelegs. Brain, tongue, legs, kidney, testes, stomach, they are fully recovered. Blood, it is partially. Sometimes it is recovered and used for edible purpose, sometimes it is not. Ruminal content mostly recovered as manure or utilized as manure. Intestine fully recovered for making into casing. Bile, it is mostly got waste, and many of the glands mostly not recovered and utilized, whereas skin is fully used for making leather. So this is just to get an idea about the different byproducts and how they are recovered and utilized. Here at a glance, briefly we will see the different byproducts and their use. So first byproduct, as I said, it is the blood, and the uses are, it is sometimes used in the sausage along with meat. It is called blood sausage sometimes. Then even blood puddings in Western countries it is used. and otherwise serum albumin or to make weatherproof glue, and also used in textile industry or as a livestock feed, or if not anything, it can be used as fertilizers. The bones, either for making bone meal or making gelatin or glue or mineral supplement and buttons. The feet, it is used for making glue or making neat's food oil. This is a very special kind of lubricant, we will discuss later. Then hooves and horns, they can be used for buttons, combs, hairpins, novelty items, toys, even sometime for low quality gelatin or as fertilizers. Hairs, bristles and wool. So they can be, wool is used for fabrics or clothes, or hairs are used for brushes, and the rough wool or coarse wool used for carpet or blanket. Sometimes the hairs are used for pillow or other items or as a fertilizer. Intestine, commonly made into casing or catgut, that is a suturing thread used for the suture in the internal part of the during operations, surgical operations, or it can be used as tennis strings or guitar strings. Slime from casing, while making casing, lot of slime meal comes out during the scrapping, so that can be used as livestock or fish production as a meal. Then a lot of fat which comes from the condemned animals or carcasses, and from there a lot of fat will come that can be used in the industry for soap or missile oil or leather dressing, candles or wax, or sometime it will go other carcass part will be made into meat meal or bone meal. Then stomach contents, that is used for stock feed after processing or for composting or biogas production, or thereby making the fuel or electricity. So now we will discuss about different specific byproducts very briefly. So firstly about the carcass utilization, that is the condemned carcasses that is utilized by carcass utilization plants or dry rendering plants. So this is for processing the condemned carcass parts or condemned offals, and for which there is a specific rendering plant which is called dry rendering plant, which we will discuss separately. So it will have several units like pre-breaker to break the whole thing into smaller part, then screw conveyor, there is a renderer which is the main cooking vessel like a autoclave, then after cooking that is transferred into percolating tank, then centrifuge which is used for separation of the fat, then balance tank where the separated fat is stored, then pulverizer, it is a mill for making the grinding. So this is the dry rendering plant which is used for condemned carcasses or parts or offals, and it helps in making the meat meal or sometime bone meal. Even it can be used for making blood meal. Now briefly we will discuss about the utilization of blood. So it makes around 7% of the live weight, that is the amount of blood which we can get. Commonly it can be processed into blood meal, or sometime we can make spray dried blood meal, or sometime we can separate the plasma and the hemoglobin part or RBC part, and from plasma separately we can keep it as a frozen plasma or spray dried plasma, and RBC part separately we can make hemoglobin from that, or we can make concentrated portion which can be freeze dried by spray drying. Sometime hydrolyzed red blood cells from which we can make the globin protein, or sometime we can separate the blood albumin for different use, even for food industry. So we will discuss little more in the next. So here is the different use of different blood products, like it is used as a supplement for the livestock as a protein supplement, that is the blood meal itself. Then it is used in the leather as a leather finishing agent, or in the plywood industry as a adhesive. It is used in the sausage as a blood sausage, I told earlier. Hemoglobin syrup, it is used, that main ion coming from the RBC, that is used as a source of ion supplement in case of anemia. And it is having lot of protein which is used even in the cosmetic products. And sometimes the much of the proteins can be separated from the blood, and that can be used in the food industry or bakery industry. So it can be a very good source of protein which can be used in different kind of bakery products after separating the proteins either from plasma or from the RBC part. Now briefly we will talk about bone processing. It can be done by solvent extraction for making tallow. Even from dry rendering, bone can be processed into bone meal and we can get the fat separated. Sometimes it can be simply cooked and chopped bones, and from that we can make bone meal. Sometimes by boiling in water, so we can get about 5% yield and it will be about $1 per kg. Bone crushing unit, it can be 5/8 or 3/8 inch size. In case of poultry and other livestock, bone meal is used as a supplement of minerals, and in case of non-sterilized bone meal, it is mostly used as fertilizer. And one of the major use of bone is for gelatin. We are going to discuss next. Now about osine and gelatin. Gelatin is one of the most important product prepared from bone, but the actual origin is the osine. Osine is the collagenous organic part available in the bone which is processed into gelatin. We will discuss in full details in a separate lecture, but gelatin can be used for both edible and non-edible purpose. The edible purpose gelatin, it needs very good quality hygienic source of bones, whereas for industrial purpose it can be from other sources or dead animals also. So yield of osine is around 30% and dicalcium phosphate is 60%, whereas gelatin will be 50% of the osine, and it is used in the printing roller or as a sizing agent in textile or paper industry. That is the low quality gelatin which we call glue. It is used in clarification of wine, and major use is in the food industry as a stabilizer, especially in ice creams and jellies. Another major use is in the pharmaceutical industry for making the capsules, and it is also used in the photography or in the binder or syrups or any other ore flotation. So there are so many use of gelatin. Now about the horns and hooves. This is also like bones. So horn proper can be used for buttons, cutlery handle, combs and signature seal. Horn pith separated by steaming used for gelatin or glue. Even that joint portion of the soft spongy tissue can be boiled and made into neat's foot oil, which is a very sophisticated lubricating oil, has got use in the very delicate machineries. Then hollow portion of horn used as horn meal or as a fire extinguishing foam by hydrolysis, and horn meal can be used as a fertilizer. And sometimes protein concentrates in soups, flavoring agent. If it is from the edible source, good quality, hygienic, then protein concentrate can be used for edible purpose also. Now about the use of intestine. Intestine majorly can be processed into casing. In this case, the histological layer, there are 4 layers, only submucous layer is retained and other layers are removed, and then it becomes a very thin transparent container in which the meat is stuffed and made into casing. So that's a major use for making sausage. And of course heparin, sometime an enzyme which can be prepared from the intestine. Sometimes we can make surgical sutures or musical strings. From this casing, it is sliced into very thin strings and dried and processed. So it is used as a surgical suture, sometimes called as catguards. It's a biodegradable or self-absorbable suture which is used inside the body during any surgical operations, and it is called absorbable suture. And we can make musical strings or sports guards. This will be very strong and used for all this purpose from the intestine. Now this is about the hide and skin. So hide is the large weight, particularly from large animal, whereas skin is the less weight, that is from the small animal. So again we will discuss in a separate lecture. So cattle hide and skin are classified on the basis of weight, sex and maturity. So the large weight comes from the large animal, so it is called hide, whereas small weight comes from the small animal, it is called skin. Sometimes keeps are the skin from small animals such as calves because its weight will be less, and presence of any damage or branding, it has got a low grading, so we will discuss again separately. And hide and skin are mostly processed into leather, so by the process of tanning. So tanning is a very old process in which either the vegetable tan or the chemical tan is used, in which the hide or skin get permanently converted with a very special property and which won't get easily decomposed or decayed, and that converted hide and skin is called as the leather. So we will discuss more details in separate lecture about the processing of hide. Now it is about hide trimming. So in the processing time, the hide will have lot of muscles, etc. So that muscles are removed or the odd part are cut and removed. So all these things are called as hide trimmings or fleshings that can make even 3 to 5 kg of trim or 4 kg of fleshing per cattle. So all these things can be used either making gelatin or glue or even pet food or protein hydrolyzate, and all this thing has got a very high value. It can have around 120 kg of gelatin or glue per ton of these trimmings. So this is a very useful utilization of the hide trimmings. Now about the use of glands or sometimes glandular byproducts, or we call pharmaceutical byproducts. Many of them can be used for making biochemicals or pharmaceuticals from these glands. So all this gland has to be collected hygienically, chilled and transported for processing in the laboratory. So different important uses, like from pancreas we can make different enzymes like trypsin, BET or insulin. From the bile we can make bile paste or detergents, or cholic acid, desoxycholic acid can be prepared, or chenodeoxycholic acid. These are different bile salts which has got important use in the industry, biochemical industry or pharmaceutical industry. Then from the adrenal gland we can make adrenaline. From pituitary, either anterior or posterior pituitary hormones can be prepared, or crude pituitary extract can be prepared. Then other glands like testis, the sex hormone; from thymus, the histone; from brain, cholesterol; from lung, heparin; from liver, liver extract. Liver extract, as you know, it is very popular for clinical treatment, especially different nutritional disorder or growth issues or weak liver, etc. Sometimes fat also can be processed into different fatty acid, tallow or edible lubricants and cosmetics. So these are all useful chemicals or biochemicals or pharmaceuticals prepared for commercial use. Now about hair and wool. Processed goat hair used for carpets, underfolds or packing slab. Cattle hair can be used for painting brush, shoe brush, artist brush. Horse hair for violin bows. For bristles like pig and all, it can be used for brushes for clothing, for flooring, for toilet, for polishing. And wool, of course, if it is good quality, it can be used for clothing. Otherwise, if it is coarse, it can be used for carpets or blankets, other Hosiani yarn or knitting yarn. So we will discuss more details, because for wool we have a separate unit. So we are going to discuss much details about the utilization of wool or processing or grading, etc. So now we are at the end of today's lecture. Today we have discussed briefly in general about utilization of different byproducts. It is an introductory lecture on byproducts utilization or animal byproducts utilization. I have discussed initially about what is byproduct, classification, their origin and their quantity available, their scope, present status, and what is the difficulty in utilization and their economic value. And later I have discussed very briefly about the use of different byproducts like blood or bone or hide and skin or intestine, even at the beginning about different edible byproducts, and later about utilization of different glands, hair, wool, etc. So hope this will be useful and easy for learning. Thank you for listening.